In this audio lecture, I'm going to talk about grammar translation method. Now, before I talk about this method, I should give introduction to what is language teaching. Now, we all know that till 9 modules we were learning literature. We were talking about writers and works written all over the world at different ages. Now it's time that being an English professor, aspiring to be a lecturer, we must know language teaching method. English composes of two things. One is literature and one is language. We've been studying literature so far, but now we need to study a bit about English language. We all know that English is the dominant language across the world. Education, in field of market research, commerce, government, everywhere English is used. Okay, there are many countries where the native language is not English. For example, India. In India, we have Hindi, Kannada, Telugu as the mother tongue. But people have this fascination to learn English because English is considered to be a language of upper class, to be a language of status. So it is important to know how to teach these languages. If it comes to English or it comes to French or German, whenever you are teaching a foreign language to the students, you need to change your method. The way we learn Hindi is not same as the way we are going to learn English. Since English is the second language, that means it's not the mother tongue, it needs to be taught in a different manner. And in this chapter, I'm going to talk about different methods which you can adopt as a teacher in order to teach your students English language. And these methods are known as language teaching methods. So let's start with the first method, that is grammar translation method. Grammar translation method is also known as classical method. Why? Because it's the traditional teaching method that was used to teach Latin and Greek during the English Renaissance. Now we remember that in Britain during the Renaissance, people used to speak in English, but then they had a fascination to learn Latin and Greek. Latin and Greek were foreign language. So this method was used by the teachers to teach them Latin and Greek. And you'll be surprised to know that even in India, till now, we use grammar translation method to teach foreign language. Now, what is grammar translation method? From the name itself, you can understand the focus is on translation of the text, of translation of the grammar. So, for example, if I'm teaching you English by the use of grammar translation method, I'm going to give you a Hindi sentence and I'll ask you to translate it in the target language, that is English. So I'll give you a sentence, मैं बाहर जा रही हूँ, and I'll ask you that translate the sentence in English. So this is called grammar translation method. It focuses on translation. It focuses on teaching grammar. You are taught nouns, pronouns, adverbs, adjectives, modals, verbs. All these things are taught. Then it focuses on rote learning of vocabulary. What is rote learning? R-O-T-E, rote learning. Rote learning means memorizing. So you are given a list of words and you are asked to memorize those words. आपको 100 adjectives दे देंगे and बोलेंगे इन्हें याद करके आओ. We'll make sentences based on these adjectives. So this is the main idea behind grammar translation method. There is no emphasis on speaking and listening, because Latin and Greek were taught as academic subjects rather than means of oral communication. So just because Latin and Greek were taught for academic purposes, from that time itself, there was no emphasis on speaking and listening. And even if today you try to look at the educational background, you'll find that, in your school days, the way you were taught English is by rote learning. They made you translate sentences, they made you learn grammar rules, they made you learn vocabulary list. But there are very few schools which emphasize on speaking and listening English, because they think that English is an academic subject, and in order to become better at a subject, you need to look at the grammar. So, in grammar translation method, you'll find there's a lot of use of mother tongue. If you go to any spoken English institute which is teaching English, you'll find that most of the class is in Hindi, and then they'll be teaching English in Hindi. So they'll be telling each and everything to the students in Hindi, and this is how they clear the basic concepts and teach them English. So vocabulary items are taught in form of word list. They'll give you word list and they'll ask you to mug up. Then there will be elaborate explanation of grammar. Why has is used and why have is not used. They'll give you a detailed explanation. Then they practice translating sentences from mother tongue to the target language and vice versa. This is the main thing that happens in a grammar translation classroom. They'll keep on giving you sentences in your mother tongue and they'll ask you to translate them in target language. So very little attention is paid to communication and role playing. They'll not give you a situation and they'll ask you that, okay, come and talk to each other in English. No. Their focus is that you need to first master the grammar. So there is focus on mastering the grammar and very less focus on pronunciation, on communication. So, in short, grammar translation method is a method of second language instruction. Second language means the language which you are learning. So, first language for us is Hindi. Second language is the language which we are learning. So, that becomes English. Or if you are learning French, then French will become your second language. So, grammar translation method is a method of second language instruction based mostly on translation of passages from native language into target language. Along the way, students are explained the grammar rules, they are talked about the syntax of the target language, and it is more linguistic than communicative. So they focus more on mugging up grammatical rules, mugging up word list. I still remember I had a word with a Hindi medium student, and I found that, in Hindi medium schools, they adopt this grammar translation method. So, if you look at any Hindi medium student, a brilliant student from Hindi medium background, you'll find that they are very good with grammatical rules. Like, I also fail at grammar at times. I don't know which would be the perfect verb form to use with a sentence. But then a Hindi medium student is brilliant at grammar. They'll know an amazing number of words of English, but still they fail to speak in English fluently. The reason is that they are taught by the grammar translation method. उनके दिमाग में sentences पहले हिंदी में आते हैं and then जब उन्हें English में बोलना होता है तो they translate it. So obviously when you are thinking in a different language and you are speaking in a different language, you will never be able to be fluent in that language. मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा है कि मुझे आपसे ये बोलना है कि जितनी जल्दी कोर्स हो उतना अच्छा है. अब इससे जब मैं आपको बोलूंगी तो आई नीड टू कन्वर्ट इट वर्ड बाय वर्ड इन ग्रामर ट्रांसलेशन मेथड. So what happens is that there is delay in communication, there is hardship in communication because the sentence structure of the native language is different from the sentence structure of English language. In a native language हम बोलते हैं मैं बाहर जा रही हूँ. Verb comes at the end, जा रही हूँ. Whereas in English, verb comes in the middle. I am going to the market. Object comes at the end. Market is the object. It comes at the end. And I am going. Am going is the verb which is coming in the middle. So when there's difference in the sentence structure, translations become even more complicated. And that is why grammar translation method is never said to be a good method for teaching foreign language. So let's have a look at a few questions which were asked from this particular topic. In December 2015, there was a question. You need to match the following. Grammar translation method is correctly matched with strategic use of mother tongue. Strategic use of mother tongue. That means you are using mother tongue in order to teach a foreign language. Grammar translated हिंदी में एक एक रूल समझाएंगे, क्रिया, verb, एक एक चीज आपको हिंदी में समझाएंगे, and then they'll ask you to speak that in English. In July 2016, there was a question, grammar translation method in English language teaching stresses on. So it stresses on accuracy. What they focus on is that when you are translating a sentence from your native language to the target language, you are accurate. There should be no grammatical errors. You need to frame perfect sentences, okay, according to the rules of the grammar. In August 2016, there was a question, what historically used in teaching? It was used in teaching Greek and Latin. In November 2017, there was a question, grammar translation method of language teaching does not include. The first is focus on grammar rules. Yes, it does include focus on grammar rules. Number two, vocabulary memorization. Definitely, they'll give you a lot of words of English and they'll ask you to mug up those words so that you can use them in sentences. Number three, inductive teaching. Now, what is inductive? Inductive is a method that comes from reasoning. Okay, so when you want to teach something inductively, that means you want to use your logic of reasoning. That's not used in grammar translation method. They'll make you mug up all the syntax. They'll not ask you to use your logic and see which particular word would fit better. And the fourth is focus on written language. Definitely, they focus more on written language. They'll give you a sentence in Hindi. They'll ask you to write it in English. So grammar translation method is all about translating sentences. It's all about understanding the grammar of the target language and mugging up vocabulary. The focus is on accuracy. You need to be perfectly sure about which sentence to form in English and which sentence would be the correct grammatical translation of a Hindi sentence. So that's it for this.